And then you're really doing the best you can. Look, and here's the other thing too: if you live in a city, you want to be 150 miles away from the crazies, right? So have a bug out plan that you're outside of that. And the reason why I say 150, because most gas tanks are 300 miles, and if people are going to come marauding, they're going to want to go back home. So they don't want to maraud and find out they've got themselves stuck halfway from home, away from their support base.
I'm right here with Bob Kudla, tradelikeagenius.com. It's gotten real so fast, so amazingly light speed fast. Changes happening so quickly, unfathomable. Just even last year in terms of the economy, energy pricing, shutdowns of factories across China. Everywhere you look, something is exacerbating the shortages and the pain, if you will, that people are experiencing across the planet. It's as if it's being purposefully amplified everywhere across all spectrums, all countries, all continents. And I really, I hate to say it, but I just think it's more of a planned collapse than it is just a random amount of different circumstances happening. And talk about the Great Reset, what they were going to do. They're going to pull energy, the rug out from under. What do we see happening in Europe? What do we see happening over in Asia? So where do we go from here? Hopefully today's conversation is going to shed a little light on it. Now, please remember, inside this danger, there is opportunity. Wei ji is what they would say in Chinese. There's opportunity inside the danger. So don't look at it as just a complete doom and gloom situation. There's so many positive things arising from this. There's a lot of awareness of truly what happens with global finance and energy, how things are being more manipulated. But where is the possibility for you to trade on this, find a niche on it, profit from it, keep your family safe, get your community set up, and keep you so you can ride through this transition and then arrive on the other side? And also, Bob, you mentioned things to keep you alive. What are your top 3 things that you might be telling people to keep in their homes that would keep them safe? Now, you could generally say food, but that's just such a general thing. You got food, water, et cetera, medicines, antibiotics, et cetera.
So I bought and stored the things that are going to be the longest lead time to come back, right? So my freezer stocked with beef, okay? Chicken, they can turn around pretty fast. And then I took care of pork because they're slaughtering a lot of pigs now. So there's some really good deals on pig. So that's my freezer. My freezer's full. On the grain side is that, I have a year's worth of carbohydrates, but secondarily is that we as a family have cut back on our carbohydrate intake tremendously. And we were amping up eating other vegetables. And I live in Southern California, so I've expanded my garden so that I can live on. I have, 13 fruit trees and probably a 200 square foot garden in a standard Southern California suburbia, fairly high-end home kind of environment where the yards are small. Okay. And so that's how we're doing it. And I have solar on my property. Okay. And the thing that we probably need to focus on more is to have a little bit more of a water storage, not so much for rain, but for drinking, because we have an earthquake issue to deal with too. So that's what I'm doing. Other people are always going to say you need to have your lead, right, to protect the homestead.
Yeah, what are you doing for security if people jump in the fence to come in?
But the biggest thing is to make sure you have a community of people around you, like-minded people. I'm not worried too much about marauding hordes getting up my hill to get to my house, because they're going to have to probably go through about 50 other neighbors to get to me. Okay. And they probably aren't going to make it. And so you want to make sure that you have good friends that are looking out for each other. And the biggest thing, if we learned anything from COVID, is man, get yourself in shape. And, then you're really doing the best you can. Look, and here's the other thing too. If you live in a city, you want to be 150 miles away from the crazies, right? So have a bug out plan that you're outside of that. And the reason why I say 150, because most gas tanks are 300 miles. And if people are going to come marauding, they're going to want to go back home. So they don't want to maraud and find out they've got themselves stuck halfway from home, away from their support base. So those are the things I tell people. And then after that, don't worry, live your life. 80% of this may not even happen, but always be prepared. And if it doesn't happen, who cares? But if you're not prepared and it happens, big problem. And that's the nature of game theory. So you need to opt on being prepared and not have to worry about it if it doesn't happen. Hey, you can laugh at me. I was prepared, but you won't be laughing if I'm right. And, that's really how I look at things. And it served me well.
Yeah, I've been looking
Oh
at
my
getting,
God, the more prepared you are, the less anxious you are.
yeah, true. So I'm trying to work on my indoor ag coming into winter here, knowing that a lot of the fresh green veggies, keeping the greenhouse out there with the supple greens, trying to get it regulated heat source, but then also growing microgreen trays in an area that's within the house that can be regulated heat as well. And, it's about trying to keep like you talk about, the micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, supplements up in the body, because they find through history, that's why people got sick, was they were not malnourished. They didn't have the proper nutrition. And then, you don't think cognitively correct. And a lot of things just go down here real quick. So, winter is going to be a more difficult time to grow because, Bob, you're in a Goldilocks zone down there. You get all year round, you can grow. But as soon as you start progressing north or get the Northeast or other parts of the US where it does snow, or at least get a couple months of freezing weather off and on through a winter, you're gonna have to think a little bit outside the box on how to be able to procure fresh foods by sprouting or doing microgreens and that sort of thing. So at least that's the tack I'm on at the moment, to supplement what's already there. And, potatoes, squash, you can store that forever, but then you're going to need some fresh greens as well. So where are you going to get that? Supermarkets aren't going to have it. You're going to have to grow your own.
Well, just look at England for that answer. Ironically, in Southern California, the only month of the year that you don't start something new is September. Too hot for the cold stuff, and the season's too short for the warm stuff. So I planted corn, I think August 15th, and it's just ripening now. But if I would have waited 2 more weeks, I would have just had corn stalks out there. And so, and I live coastal, so if I live farther inland, you can still you can put corn still in the ground. But yeah, so Southern California coastal, September is too warm. So that's the other thing too, is just get to know what you can do. And there's also really cool guys that built greenhouses that are thermal greenhouses that they dug down 10 feet into the ground, created a heat sink, and you can grow citrus, and things of that nature. You just have to pollination is more of an issue with that. And that's the other thing people don't realize. Stuff needs to pollinate. You might be the pollinator, if you grow things inside. But as the Dutch told you, if you don't have energy, you ain't growing anything. So so you have to make sure that you have good source of energy for your home if if you're going to need it.
Yeah, and you can't self-pollinate because there were a couple stories about a village in China was so polluted around the village itself that there were no insects, no birds. I mean, everything, it was a dead zone, literally, when I said a dead zone for flying insects that could pollinate. So that what they would have to do every year is go around with these fluffy brushes and hit every single blossom that came on the tree, and they would cross-pollinate by hand. But I was talking like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres. So it can be done. Just going to need to think a little bit more out of the box. And again, when we were driving up the road, heading out to get out to town to do a little shopping today, we passed it was an underground sort of storage thing that you might put vegetables that you don't need to refrigerate. It was a root cellar, but it was built into the side of the hill. And it was definitely from an old era there, but it was still intact, and you could definitely see. So thinking about refrigeration, keeping things if that or the other. But I mean, who has the resources to really dig down, start building out a root cellar in a neighborhood where you live? There's a lot of things that people cannot do in suburbia, but you can do out in the countryside and vice versa.
I'll tell you 2 things that we do is that I keep my carrots, and when it gets cooler, I keep my carrots in the ground till I need to harvest them. Occasionally they'll get too big, and my potatoes are grown in pots. And so with potatoes, you just keep putting soil on top of it. I probably will have this one pot when I finally harvest it. I'll probably have, I don't know, 20, 25 pounds of potatoes in a regular, big flower pot. So there's some things you can do, and the microgreen things is great. If you have an ability to keep it moist, humid, I should say, you can pull a couple salads off that a week, so. And I'll give you a fun fact that people don't know is that most commercial vanilla is hand pollinated, because in the wild, there's a certain insects that can do it. And when you're growing vanilla commercially, you need a lot of vanilla to make it viable. You have to go out there and you have to hand pollinate the blossoms to ensure you get a pod. But that's what Hawaii's doing. We're getting vanilla growers out there, and and they're growing cocoa out there now too. So some of the stuff's starting to to take root, onshoring, if you will, because of the supply chains. It could be an issue getting vanilla in from Madagascar or from Vietnam or wherever else they're trying to grow it commercially, Africa, things of that nature.
Yeah, and the outlier in Africa, you mentioned Hawaii there for a second. It's like Kilauea is starting off again. You got the eruptions that are ongoing over in La Palma. How much more volcanic ash being ejected into the upper atmosphere is going to add on top and layer on top of this extra cloud layer being produced by more cosmic rays as the sun steps down.
That is Kilauea volcano behind my brother and sister-in-law as of last night.
What? Yeah, it's really, so you got to ask, there's a lot of other factors going on besides what governments can control. You're thinking about a full nature cycle here of, how much volcanic ash, would it be a year without a summer? And, how is this going to either increase or decrease the crop yields moving forward, the volcanic ash? And that, that's an outlier too. And, these volcanic activity is supposed to increase more during the grand solar minimum. So increased eruption, the intensity of eruptions, as well as tectonic activity.
Canary Islands are, you might get a slough there. And by the way, for people, you're not going to get an 800-foot tsunami. No. You're talking maybe, I don't know. There's a lot of ocean there. It's not that big of a landmass. So around the Canary Islands, they may have some problems, but not what they're thinking about with Florida. So, but your point is, the whole belt is going off. Etna's going off. Canary Islands are going off. Hawaii's going off. All we have to do is have Indonesia go off with one big one, and we'll have and if we get it during a solar minimum, Katie bar the door.
Well, then what's the play then on the ag play, Bob? I hate to cut you off there, but if we do get one of these, volcanic ejections year without a summer, what kind of companies are able to weather through that and provide the service and get into that ag play that they would have a solution to that problem? Having potash, I don't know, is a good one, but, looking outside to other companies that could handle such would it be 6 millimeter poly plastic manufacturers to suddenly put greenhouses around an enormous amount of the earth to grow food? I don't know. I'm looking for a play on that.
Yeah. The part of the problem is the last time we had that, we've had poor distribution of food. So, when Iceland went off and we had, like, they called the worst year ever, like, to be alive was, I think, AD 538 or something like that, because of the Icelandic volcano. You couldn't shift food growing zones. If the Northeast goes offline or Western Europe goes offline today, and you have a growing infrastructure down in the Sahel, well, they could pick up the slack, and maybe Brazil and Argentina are going to be fine. So I think we're going to learn through this cycle kind of how it's really going to look, because the last time we had this cycle, the Southern Hemisphere was kind of unknown, right? There wasn't really anybody of consequence in Australia or in South America or in South Africa, right, where we had the grow zones, we had mature agriculture. So it's going to be hard to say. Look, make no doubt, it's going to be very inconvenient for people. And here's what I always tell people: if you live outside the United States, it's going to become not fun. Inside the United States, it's probably going to be inconvenient unless the United States suffers a catastrophic event like a volcano going off in California, for example. People don't realize, the caldera by Mammoth Mountain is massive, and the long caldera, and that would cause a great deal of issues, because the blowback to the west will affect the Central Valley and affect San Francisco. All you have to do is drive from LA to Las Vegas and see all the volcanic rock to know that is a very, very geologically active area. Everywhere around where I live, there's sulfur vents. Well, you have sulfur vents when you have hot springs. You have hot springs because you have seismic activity going on underneath you. So, if we have an event like that in California, we have an event like that, like a seismic event up in along the Cascadia, then America can be in really big trouble. If not, it's going to be inconvenient for America. But I certainly don't want to be Western Europe or China right now, and India. They're proving themselves to be not thinking. I thought the Chinese were supposed to be these long-term thinkers. How do long-term thinkers run out of energy? Okay. So, it's another myth, delusion that people have been told about the Chinese, that these people are playing 4D chess. Well, they played 4D chess when they should have been buying coal, right? So you're going to have these political missteps too. The United States, God's blessed us with a square longitude and latitude. So we have a lot of places to hide, where very few other countries have that. Obviously Argentina, Brazil, Australia, New Zealand's probably going to be okay, that way. And, but few other places. I say northwestern Mexico has, that area is probably going to be okay too. But Canada, no bueno.
They're going to be migrating south. Think about that, the
Yeah.
reverse migration. I was talking to somebody just a couple of days ago that hadn't thought of that. They were, more concerned with southern border running this direction. I was like, whoa, wait a second. When it gets too cold up there and they can't grow, they can't do it, they're going to be heading south.
At least the migration will be a bunch of nice people coming through. They'll apologize for coming in because the Canadians are so nice.
And remember, tradelikeagenius.com, use the promo code FALL.
65% off bundle, 40% off non-bundled. The bundles are already pre-discounted, but take advantage of it by Saturday. I think you'll like what we have and what we do. And, we have our pulse on it. So we think we're going to stay ahead of the game. But
yeah, and use the promo code FALL. I'll leave the links in the description box below so you can catch up on all the information. Bob, I appreciate you joining me. I hear the dogs in the background. The alarms are on. Yep. Live alarm.
Yep, that's why I got to go.
All right. Talk to you.
I'll see you. Bye-bye.